Welcome to the Ballerinas podcast, Steven McRae. It is an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you
And
for having me.
you're so welcome. We're diving straight in. I think this is a great question to sort of introduce yourself in a quick way. You've said before that success is like a three-legged stool. I love this. Talent, work ethic, and luck. I love that analogy because it really acknowledges how much is within our control and how much isn't. Unpack that a little for us, and how have you seen those three legs play out in your own career so far?
Well, I learned that analogy when I was doing my degree in business management and leadership, whilst obviously performing with the Royal Ballet. And it just struck me that obviously the world of dance, but any profession, it really rings true. And I've experienced it myself. I've witnessed friends, colleagues, um, people far more talented than me, perhaps not pursuing it to the lengths that I pursued it, um, and vice versa. People that perhaps at first appearance you think, oh, do they have all the necessary tools to make it? But their sheer determination, their passion, combined with, sometimes being at the right place at the right time, means that they've gone on and had the most extraordinary careers. So I think it's really useful for young people to remember that all those ingredients are really necessary. You can, have the greatest talent that's been put onto this planet, but if you don't have that drive and that inner desire and want to explore ways of developing and evolving, then that talent alone is not going to take you anywhere. Um, on the other hand, you can have all the talent, all the hard work. Sometimes you just need that little bit of luck to come your way, and that's in all areas of life. And I've really experienced that myself, being, at the right competition at the right time, or having, wonderful teachers at a young age saying it's time for us to hand you over to another teacher. That to me, I see as luck, because what are the chances of falling into the hands of such generous teachers like that? So yeah, I really believe those three elements are a great lesson for all of us.
What do you think the luckiest has been in your career so far?
Oh gosh.
I had to pick one.
I think the most obvious one possibly is when the year I joined the Royal Ballet, the company were performing a ballet called Symphonic Variations, which was choreographed by Sir Frederick Ashton, and it's almost a religious piece of the Royal Ballet's heritage and history. But obviously, as an 18-year-old, I had no concept what that piece was. It's a very small cast. It's usually six principals, three ladies and three men. And in my first season, my name was put down as the understudy, which, to many people, it was a huge surprise. And what on earth? Why are they putting his name there? Um, and of course, I was so naive and young, I had no concept what on earth this was. And so, of course, I went to every rehearsal and made sure I knew the part that I was learning. But 2 days before the opening night, a dancer in the opening cast got injured. And it was not the role that I was understudying. I was understudying the other side. But the lady who was in charge of setting the ballet just looked at me and said, "Do you know it?" And I didn't even hesitate. I just said, "Yes, of course I know it," which I didn't have a clue because I wasn't watching that person at all. So I just said yes and jumped in and, you know, managed to fluff my way through it. And 2 days later, found myself stood on the Royal Opera House stage doing the opening night of Symphonic Variations alongside, Alina Kocikaru, Johann Coburg, Federico Bonelli. Um, I was a baby, an absolute baby, and that was, I guess, maybe one of the examples of the three-legged stool. I obviously was doing my bit to make sure I was working hard and being prepared. I obviously had some sort of talent because I was in the company, but obviously that was a huge amount of luck that I happened to be in the studio that day, was given the opportunity to learn this ballet, and unfortunately, because of another dancer's injury, it meant that that position opened up for me. So from that, many other opportunities started to appear. And I think it was evident that I was not somebody who would shy away from the challenge. If they said, "Is this possible? Do you think you could do this?" I just said, "Yes, of course I can do it. Like, I'll at least try."
Yeah.
And I think it really did open up many doors from that point.
And when it comes to work ethic, because in the introduction, I have let everybody know where you're from, Australia, which they'll all love, which most already know anyway. But your family couldn't be more removed from the creative arts if they tried. And so, where does the work ethic come from? Does it come in a different form?
Well, I mean, the work ethic comes from my family.
Yeah.
My family have never been handed anything.
Mm.
And I think when you grow up with a clear example of two parents that, want to give you the world and that they're willing to do whatever the work necessary is required to do that, you learn very quickly what an incredibly strong work ethic can give you and what it can provide. Um, the creativity part, I would actually say, although my parents are not officially in the creative industries, they're some of the most creative people I've ever met. I mean, my father is the greatest problem solver I think's been put on this planet. He's an auto electrician by trade and, wired up many race cars and built his own race car. So there was never I guess, from looking at it from my point of view, I never saw my parents say, no, that's not possible. It was always, okay, we don't have either the resources to do it the obvious way, or we don't have a solution straight away, but let's find a way. And even if we can't find a way, at least try find a way. And I think that's probably one of the greatest examples of creativity. So yeah, I think I've been surrounded by it my whole life.
I love that because I feel really blessed and lucky to have incredibly supportive parents too. And I'm realizing in my older age that that it's not always the case. And so I love whenever I've heard interviews just how much you praise your amazing parents. And so they sound like incredible people. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's in many ways destroyed them that I moved to the other side of the world. I was
Would have.
17, and of course, I wish my parents were around the corner. I'm very jealous of all our friends who live here and their parents are local or just an hour drive away. I'm incredibly jealous of that. And my parents would never, ever want to change, the career path that I chose. And, they're obviously incredibly proud. But yeah, it would be wonderful to be able to have them a little bit closer.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good segue into. I wanted to ask you about your family because you really strike me as the ultimate family man. I mean, even your Instagram bio reads dad before principal at the Royal Ballet. And
Yeah.
obvious that like your beautiful wife, Elizabeth, and your children are just like the light of your life. And becoming, as we said earlier before we started recording, a parent myself, I can only imagine how much they inspire you. Did fatherhood shape the way you approach or inspired to write your book?
Yeah, so I mean, anyone who's listening to this who has become a parent or they're a carer of somebody where, you know, in an instant, you are no longer the center of your own universe. These other little people become entirely your universe. And it's the most beautiful thing, and especially in a profession like ours that naturally, and I've said this before, it's a very selfish profession. It's like any elite athlete. You are striving every single day to be a better version than what you were, yesterday or the week before, or you're constantly trying to evolve. And there comes with that a natural element of selfishness because you have to put yourself first in a number of decisions, whether that is, okay, I'm going to move to the other side of the world, or I'm not going to attend that family event because I need to do this training, or, all those endless sacrifices and things, which you only do if you genuinely have a passion for something. So parenthood obviously then challenges that and makes you go, oh, hang on, how do I do this? Because I have to obviously give the career and myself, which sounds horrible, the dedication and devotion it requires. But you have these little humans who 110% need you. So it's a huge shift for anyone becoming a parent. I can obviously only relay it and relate it to my world, being a professional dancer. It's intense and it makes you view the world, I think, with very different eyes. And now that my children are growing up, they're 10, 8, and almost 6, um, I see the world through their eyes a lot of the time. And then looking back at my own experiences and things, um, it starts to perhaps influence the way you want them to engage with the world. I want them to be completely free to explore the world and to see the world and experience it all. Um, but I also want to use the lessons I've learned to encourage them to perhaps not waste not waste energy on so many things that we've all wasted our energies on throughout our own lives. So when I was approached by the most wonderful children's book publisher, Magic Cat Publishing here in the UK, they wanted to discuss a ballet book. And they said that they wanted to obviously create a book for young dancers and for young people who perhaps they haven't even stepped foot into a studio, to show them little insight into the world of ballet. Now, the publishers, they're the most wonderful people and have given me free rein to run as far and fast as I want to with the book. But when you say, let's give a little insight into the world of ballet, where do you begin?
Like where?
Because it's huge. And of course, I'm not interested in just reinforcing every cliche that ballet is little girls in a white leotard and off they go to do a little exam every now and again, and that's what ballet is. No, 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 no. I was not interested in that whatsoever. So straight away we decided, okay, we're not going to use any images of real people. We're going to animate this whole entire book. And so I said, great, let's really explore what ballet and what dance can actually do. So the book itself, I mean, it's technically targeted at young people, so I don't know, 9, 10, 11 year olds. But the actual content in it is relevant for all ages. And as I was writing the book, it became very apparent to me, and maybe this is because of parenthood, that although I have a huge responsibility writing this book for young people to make sure it's inspiring, it's motivating, it's real, it's not just chasing rainbows, I also felt a huge responsibility for the parents. I wanted to write useful information in there that parents would also pick up this book.
Right.
Parents who have no knowledge of the world of ballet and dance, and perhaps read something and maybe notice some of their own children's behaviors or things they're doing at home, crazy overstretching or doing too many exercises, never having a rest. And just for parents to have some sort of information that they can just pick up and read one small sentence, a bit of a fact about whatever it is that you want to know about the world of dance, and be able to then have a conversation with their children, or maybe go have a conversation with the teachers and just say, look, I don't know anything about this. This is not my world. This is your world. Could you tell me a little bit more about this? Or I read this. So I found that obviously a privilege, but I found it a huge responsibility to make sure that this book um, really enabled young people to find out some really interesting insights, but also for their parents, their carers, to also feel empowered. It's a
Yeah.
big word, but to say that they felt empowered by the book. And also, there could be a kid who's got currently no interest in dance or ballet, and they pick up this book and they go, oh, what on earth is this? And by the end of it, they go, oh, okay, that's a completely different world than I imagined. So let's go and find a local lesson and let's do it. Or let's just go on YouTube and find some lesson for a starter. You don't have to sign up for a career in dance to experience just how amazing it can be.
I love that it sounds like, because obviously I've pre-ordered my copy. I don't have my hands on a copy, so I haven't read it, but
I
it's
have one here.
send it across the ocean. I mean, it sounds to me like you're weaving in perhaps some messaging to parents too that you want to get across. Do
Yeah.
you think students today that are studying dance are doing too much?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Like
because I couldn't agree
and
more.
that's a global phenomenon. That's a global issue.
Yeah.
I just think, and it's not just the world of dance. It's I
Mhm.
see it with,
Everything.
kids where I live in London. They're doing way too much. They're doing everything, and everyone's got to be on track to be the greatest of all time in that field, whether they're doing a tennis lesson or they're off swimming or they're doing, endless hours of extra tutoring. What for? Like, be a kid. Let the kid explore and discover and find what their own name is, let alone being told who they are every single minute of every day. So
Play.
yeah, perhaps there's a bit of a message in that book as well of it's okay to rest. It's okay to not be 110%
Yeah.
focused on ballet every single day.
I love that message. I mean, personally, in my studio, we actually structure our timetables so that our seniors and our juniors never have multiple days in a row dancing.
Mhm.
And
Great.
sometimes we get pushback, which is a little bit like, oh, well, she just wants to dance every day. And I argue that's not healthy at 8.
Yeah.
It's just not. Anyway, so no, I love it. I actually cannot wait to get my hands on it. I mean, I'll be reading it to Bo, who's only 2.
Yeah, I mean the book publishers, Magic Cat, they are a non-fiction publisher. I mean, it's all children's non-fiction books. So of course, when I announced that I had this book coming out, many people assumed it was fictional and it was you know, a
Autobiography.
fun, inspiring, made-up story. But it's not. It's a book of facts. It's got beautiful illustrations that try to capture the energy and the power that I believe dance brings to young people, but also to audiences and what it can do for society. But it has little snippets of insights of my own journey. It has facts backed up by conversations with the sports scientists that I work with and things like that. But it takes you through the day of a dancer, basically. So starting with class and warming up and all the self-care that takes place and working with medical teams, what it's like to be in a rehearsal, how we add those layers, how do you keep evolving and developing as an artist, all the backstage elements behind the scenes. We quickly touch on the huge number of stakeholders that are involved with putting on a performance and to encourage children to say, okay, you have a love of dance and perhaps you won't pursue it as your full-time career, but look at all these areas that you could be involved within the profession, whether you're the
Mm.
conductor, the musician, the stage manager, the designer, the wardrobe assistant, hair, makeup, whatever it is you want to do. There are so many things you can do that are still inspired and connected to dance. And then, of course, we discuss actually stepping out onto these big international stages, nerves, how you deal with that, combating the pressure and the thrill of actually just flying across these stages. We talk about it all. It's a very open and honest insight, really, just to give anyone reading it a taste, but particularly those young people who perhaps are thinking, I want to have a go at some of this dancing. Yeah,
Mm.
I hope they pick it up and say, okay, I absolutely have to try this.
It sounds different to anything I've read in, the dance world. So I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. I'm going to keep with the family theme a little bit because in my research for our interview, I've watched quite a few interviews over the years, but I deep dived. And I found this particular one where I heard you speaking really honestly about drafting a letter after the birth of, I think it was your second child, asking for some time off to be with your family. And then incredibly the next day, you suffered your massive Achilles injury on stage. That moment feels so layered with vulnerability and perspective. And I just want to know what was going through your mind at the time and how becoming a father has shifted your perspective as an artist. Because I'll be honest, and I've actually never admitted this on my mic before. When I gave birth to my son, I had this overwhelming sense to just shut up shop and just disappear and just be mum. And I wanted to spend every second being mum. And it was very overwhelming. And I wanted to give up everything I'd worked so hard for. I didn't, as you know, you didn't, but I found that story incredibly touching personally. So I just wanted to know how, what was going through your mind in that moment when he was born.
So I think many things, I guess, started to collide at that time. So when my second child was born, I think the realization that our firstborn, she wasn't even two at the time, she was about to be two, but it was all happening so quickly.
Mm.
And I was performing all the time at the Royal Opera House. I was on a plane, every second weekend flying somewhere and performing. And of course, I loved it. I was addicted to it. It was almost like a challenge of, you know, how much can I do and still survive? And you do for a period of time and you think, okay, it's fine. I'm invincible. I can take this on. I can do all of this. When my first son arrived, I think it was a huge realization of, wow, okay, I've already been here for this period of time. We have our second child. I'm doing all of this performing, but I started to not feel present in any of it. So I didn't feel I was present at work. I didn't feel like I was present at home. I felt like I was in this sort of cloud, this haze of what I now know was burnout. And I think also just the realization of, again, going back to the fact I'd moved away from my family on the other side of the world, lots of things started to hit home at that point. And my nature, naturally, I like to have some control over my situations. And I think that's a very common trait amongst dancers and creative people. They like to, take control. And I think that's because so many things within our profession are out of our control. So when we can take control, we really try to do it. And I think I saw it as a way of me taking some sort of control at that point of going, why don't I just take a year sabbatical so I can be with my children, take a pause from all the yes, 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 I'll do more, 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 more. So that's why I started to write a letter saying I would like to take this leave of absence. And it's fascinating that the body will do it for you. It told me, no, no, no. And it's interesting. I had this conversation with my coach at the time, Leslie Collier, most extraordinary principal of the Royal Ballet, who had works created by her for her by all the greats and worked with Baryshnikov and Anthony Dow and Nureyev and everybody. And she has twin boys, and I shared that with her later on that I was so close to asking for that time off. And she had a similar experience where she was thinking, oh, I just want to be with my boys. I want to be with my boys. And then sure enough, big injury. Boom, it
For her
happened
too.
to her. Yeah, to her. So um, it's interesting how the body never lies. The body will always tell you what it needs to do and when it needs to do it. And if you're not listening, it will very much find a way to tell you, listen.
Yeah, it's almost like you both manifested it. That's a hot word at the moment.
Yeah, I guess in a way. I mean, I could think of other ways to manifest it, but
Yeah. Speaking of your injury, I think returning to the bar after injury can be traumatic for dancers of all levels. I work with lots of adult students, and sometimes getting them back to the bar after an injury that often happens very much outside the studio can be a
Yeah.
lot. As someone who has had two major injuries, how did your mindset shift between the first one and the second one? Like what changed in how you processed and perhaps even recovered the second time?
Well, the first one, I mean, again, I just want to start by saying I've had these two major injuries, which obviously that's huge and that's terrifying. But I look at, I've been in the company, the Royal Ballet Company now for 21 seasons. So
Mm,
21 years at that level. And my first season, I was thrown in straight away doing those demanding roles. So it's 21 years of doing that work, let alone all the training
mm,
before that that's already eating away at your body. I see that as incredibly lucky that I've gone that long and only had two major injuries. So I see that as a positive. But of course, if you have two big injuries of the type I had, which are basically the two worst ones you could have, um, people obviously think, oh, what bad luck. But I see it as good luck. But anyway, so going back to the first injury, when it happened, I think it was more a case of the panic and the fear and the uncertainty around it. So snapping your Achilles, it was a full rupture, and where I snapped it, it was not a very good position. It's never a good position to snap your Achilles, but it was a very complicated place where it snapped, so it made it quite a difficult surgery. When it happened, my children were 4, 2, and 5 weeks old. Then about what was it, 2 months after it had snapped, the whole world went into lockdown. So there was so much going on in my world and the entire world, and it all compacted. We didn't know if the Royal Opera House would survive COVID and lockdown. Every arts organization was thinking, is this the end of all of these places? My wife had given birth to our third and had planned to go back on stage, but because of lockdown meant that performance got cut. It then meant, well, we have three children. What are we doing? We don't have any family support nearby. Like there were so many things compacting and making that situation
worse.
incredibly challenging. um, you find a way, you navigate a way. The issue with the Achilles was it, up until me doing that, no one had really gotten back doing the roles that I was trying to do with that kind of injury. So, although I had in my head, of course, I'm going to get back on stage, you know that majority of the world around you strongly believe it's not going to happen. It felt as if they were just all watching a car crash in slow motion. So I knew that, of course, but it was like, no, 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 I'm doing this, I'm getting back on stage. Also, the reality of family. If I'm not on stage and bringing a salary in, who's funding our life? Like who's doing this? So yeah, it was just a highly pressurized situation, which I understand the whole world was in a very pressurized um, oven at that point in time. Then fast forward, so it took me 2 years to get back on stage, and with COVID and everything, then I was on stage for two whole seasons and did all the massive repertoire that could have tested the Achilles as hard as it could ever have been tested, and felt great at the end of those two seasons. Um, and then, of course, my knee then imploded on stage. And I think when the knee happened, it was less panic, it was less fear. For me, I knew the knee was less complicated than the Achilles, uh, not less difficult. It's got its own world to navigate, but I think once you've been through the Achilles reconstruction, the lessons learned from that set you up for so much that when the knee snapped, it didn't even cross my mind of, can I actually do this? It was just, okay, this is going to happen, and I am going to do this, and I'm going to follow this, and I'm going to speak to this person. We have the most wonderful medical team at the Royal Ballet, so none of them looked at me with the eyes that I got when the Achilles snapped. Put it that way. I didn't feel like there was any secret messaging behind their eyes of doubt. The knee, it was very much, well, of course you'll come back from this and, let's crack on. So I think I got into a far less state of panic and I didn't feel I was spiraling out of control, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's like you mentally very quickly went through, I've done this before, I can do it again, and there's just a little checklist to go through now.
Yeah, exactly. And you get to have a sleep for a few hours while they're operating on you. So, as a parent, any sleep is welcome.
Yeah, definitely. I'd take it. Now, Stephen, you've often spoken about the pressure. I hear you in interviews a lot, talk about the idea that dancers have to perform like athletes, but be artists, and how unsustainable that can be for the body. And if you were suddenly appointed artistic director of the global ballet world, what would you change? Like, what's your vision for a healthier, sustainable future for dancers?
Workload number one. It's the practices and views that the only way to get better is just to repeat something over and over and over again and to do it every single day.
Mm.
This notion that we have to rehearse something every single day leading up to a performance is just so outdated, and the world of sport literally laughs like the dance when you say, "Oh, this is how we build up to an opening night." I mean, it's no wonder every surgeon just shakes their head and says, "Well,
No wonder this
of
happened.
course you're all injured and you're just spewing out these dances and next, 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 next." So for me, that's number one. Ultimately, it's the workload. Every country, every part of the world has different cultures surrounding that. So, in Europe, many companies finish rehearsing much earlier in the day before a performance. In London, we don't. We carry on till 5:30 before 7:30 show. So, I mean, those hours alone,
Wild.
it's too much. Um, Obviously, our company director, Kevin O'Hare, is so aware of all of this and has implemented so many changes, and they are really making great improvements. But it's not up to one person. It's a global issue. It's the culture of how we start from, age 7 in a dance studio through to how we retire or how we coach our dancers in professional settings, um, how we also encourage the professionals to take care of their well-being, simply dancing every single day because you feel that that's what's expected of you. It's those little things, those norms that have to be openly discussed and challenged and say, no, 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 we want to have these professionals dance as long as they want to and be able to enjoy these artists for as long as they want to, not get to the point where they're clinging on and holding on and then feeling that they just have to let go. And some of them are not ready to let go, but of course their bodies are so burnt out that what are they to do?
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love all the messaging that you're getting across. And it is getting across. I know I get all my students to follow you when you started really sharing on Instagram or your cross training and, not necessarily sticking to the routine of having to just do company class every single day and burn yourself out till the end of the day and then perform, and sharing what that's like, and pushing back against the norm. I thought it was really brave, and really, really important. So thank you so much. And I always tell them to follow you. You're a great role model on social media. Your social media game is very strong, by the way. Do you do your reels? Do you do your own content?
I do everything. I mean, who's going to do
Incredible.
it for me?
No, no, true. I know. I just thought I'd ask because it's that good. Like your
Oh, thank
transitions, your cuts, your editing. Like I'm very, very impressed. Um, so just finally, because this is the Balance Ballerinas podcast, after all, I always ask, what does balance look like for you these days, especially as someone who's really balancing the life of a performer plus family life and all these other projects you have going on, like the launch of this book.
Um, for me, I think the greatest example I can give to the point where I felt the closest to feeling balanced, I guess you could say, was last month. I was in Japan performing with National Ballet of Japan, and I was able to take my family with me. And
I
so I had my wife and three children by my side in Japan. They had the most life-changing experience exploring, you know, the wonderful Japanese culture and everything that Tokyo has to offer. I was also there working and performing, navigating my own physical challenges, but finding a way, making it happen. Had them there watching one or two shows as well, enjoying life with them whilst balancing the work aspect of it. For me, that was probably the closest I've ever felt so far in this journey of being balanced in some way.
I love that answer. I love seeing you in the Mad Hatter costume. Is that one of your, would that be one of your favorite roles to play?
I think it's definitely one of the roles that is closest to my heart, having it created on me and working with Christopher Wilden on that
Yeah.
so many years ago um, was very special. Any dancer having a role created on them is very special, but to have a role so unique, I think, makes it even more special. So every time I revisit it, it's a nice sort of check-in to where you are in the journey at that stage. And I'm not ever one to really look back because I'm always just living in now and focused on tomorrow. But to have a role like that, you can't help but take a second when you put the hat on and go, okay, since it was created back in 2011, I think it was, what's changed? And then it all goes in front of your eyes. So it's always a wonderful moment putting that hat back on.
I love that. You're, like I said, the way that you invite us into your world is just so incredibly inspiring, I think, for the next generation of not just dancers, but artists and teachers and everybody really. So you're so giving of your time and your energy, and even just taking the time to do this interview for me. I just want to thank you so much on behalf of the Balance Ballerinas community. And yeah, I have to admit, I'm mortified that we cannot get a legal copy of A Resilient Man, your documentary here in Australia. We need
Yeah.
to do something about
I
that.
know. I mean, we're trying, and I would love to. Obviously, I wave the Australian flag very proudly everywhere I go, but
I know.
um, the film's not available yet in Australia, but there will be a way at some point.
Yes, I'm not going to tell you how I watched it. But
I
I,
listening.
yeah, I did have to do some black market billings to get my hands on a copy. But no, thank you so much, Stephen.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on.